Edward Dennis Normandy III, represented the Philippines to the New York Herald Tribune Youth Forum in 1957. Old videos of him taken during the forum have just recently gone viral, and captivated a new generation of listeners.
Opinion prejudice is the holding of an opinion without certifying its correctness. It is part of human nature. It can be very dangerous if it is used for personal ends or for exploitation of the masses. But in its essence, prejudice is something that is part of human nature, and so it serves a useful end.
Well, I think prejudice is some sort of an opinion formed beforehand and not taking time out to judge fairly, and its basis is mostly emotion, as Amin said. But I think prejudice has two aspects. It has the positive and the negative, because there can be prejudices which are against something and prejudices which can be for something.
The story he shared about how he overcame his prejudice towards the Japanese made a lasting impression to the viewers.
Prejudices. You were saying that you were prejudiced against the Japanese, I think, Dennis. Would you like to...
Well, personally, it's because I lost my father during the war. In the Philippines, there has been a reconstruction program for houses. But a house is more realistically not a house, not a home, but a house without a father. And a couple of years back, my mother was invited by the Japanese woman to go over to Japan, because she's president of the National Gold Star War Widows Association of the Philippines. And we certainly didn't want to go, but after a few hours of deliberation, we went. And when we were at the airport, I felt rather awful, because I knew that in my heart, I couldn't look at the Japanese straight in the eye and say that there was no bitterness in my heart. But then, after our 2-month stay in Japan, when we saw all the people, and we saw how the mothers and the children and the wives had suffered just as much as we did, we saw that war is a two-sided thing. Not only one section suffers from the war. And then, a few nights before we left, there was an old woman who came to our hotel, and she talked to my mother, and she had a quilt. It was designed like a tree, and she explained that her boy, her only son, planted that tree before he left for battle, which was in the Philippines. And that son never came back. And then all of a sudden she knelt to my mother and said, "If it was my son that killed your husband, please forgive him. I'm on my knees to you, asking for your forgiveness, because I don't think my son was very bad. Well, maybe war did something which made him do that. You know how it is if you have 2 sons. You know how it is if you should lose both of them in war. Perhaps my son would want someone from the Philippines to have this." And that did it, because when we left Japan and we were in the airplane, I looked back at the people in Tokyo. I guess I was leaving behind all my bitterness and prejudice. I was leaving a new man, and I felt that I was leaving with a better understanding of love and brotherly understanding.
Based on Dennis' last update on his Facebook account, that is a year ago, it appears that he and his family are based in Arizona. The San Francisco-Manila Sister City Committee Chairman, Dennis Normandy, gives a brief introduction to former Mayor of San Francisco Willie Brown. The heads of the delegation on their way to the Justo Albert Auditorium, former Mayor Brown, Center, California Civil Service Commissioner Edward Dennis Normandy, chairperson of the San Francisco-Manila Sister City Committee, during the San Francisco Cultural and Trade Mission, in Intramuros, Manila in 2010.